I guess now is a good time as we finish up to say like this movie's super violent and maybe don't like it's not like
it's not for everyone.
It's not for everybody, but
Yeah.
it's quite good and yeah. I don't
If
know.
you're a fan of or can handle gore, then 100,000% watch it. Watch it. But if you can't stand the sight of blood, don't watch it.
No, don't.
And
If you can't stand the sight of Rory Kinnear, which is a well-known medical
my
condition, don't watch it. It's Kinnear.
it's Kinnearology.
Kinnearology.
Every 5 scenes. Damn. Sorry, I'm late.
That's some real patriarchy language you're using right there.
I'm just trying to get in good shape for our pod today.
Pri said she would be available at 9:10, and it is 9:13.
Whoa, to be fair, I sat here at 9:11 and said nothing.
Just put you on blast. What is up?
What is up?
Up. Stoked. Fucking This podcast is called The Low Ceiling.
My name is Jon.
Yeah. I'm Pri.
Yeah.
We're talking about men, not just the movie.
Men, not just the movie. Excellent alternate title.
Men, not just for movies anymore.
Fellas, blokes and geezers. Another Alex Garland joint. What
Another? What do you mean?
Well, he's directed a couple more.
Yeah, we've never covered any of them. However, on our list is a film that he wrote called Never Let Me Go.
Oh.
Which I do want to cover at some point.
All right.
Which will be pleasing to one or two people. One of them being myself.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And your mom. So that's great.
Well, she better. She's read the book, I think. So
Oh, sick. Okay, culture.
Put it together, yeah.
All right.
Culture. The guy won like a fucking Nobel Prize.
Alex Garland?
Just kidding. Okay.
Hashtag men. Woo!
Yeah, so we're talking about Men. One of the more recent films we've talked about on this podcast.
Hell yeah.
Came out last year. We saw it in theaters. I, wait for it, liked it.
Yeah. I liked it, and on the second watch, I still like it. But I have some views and
Dare
thoughts.
I say I liked it even more on my third watch this week. Yeah, I did like this movie.
I got thoughts.
Can I say one thing? Because in a rare twist of fate, I do want to talk a little bit about the reviews for this film.
Sure.
Because they're kind of interesting. And I want to preface it by saying that, like, one thing I kind of admire and hate about professional reviewers
Yeah.
is that they're always so confident about what a movie means.
Sure.
Even though they've just seen it, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
And they write a take, and it's kind of important in today's age of Web 3.0 that, like, you kind of need a take, you know?
Yeah.
And you kind of need to, you kind of need to have something to say, obviously, if you're going to write about this movie.
It's a very polarizing title just by virtue of being on the internet. Of course, when you see a movie titled Men or Women, you're going to have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Whether or not the subject of the film is, heavily internetized.
But the thing is that, like, I read a bunch of reviews and I was like, everyone is so confident about what the movie means.
Yeah.
And that works in a way where they can both dismiss the shortcomings of the film and also, or alternatively kind of like praise it.
Yeah.
But I think because it's named Men, people have a certain assumption, and then it is kind of about that.
Yeah.
But whenever I watch this movie, I'm still kind of like, I don't know. I think it means a lot more than just that, than just like men bad, men toxic, men, like,
yeah.
Because Alex Garland, and I'm gonna segue into this a little bit too. Alex Garland genuinely is one of the few filmmakers I truly believe who makes deliberately intellectual films.
Yeah. Intellectual / pretentious?
A little. They're intellectually ambitious. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think a lot of his movies don't quite reach that level.
Sure.
but a couple do, and they're always very like tantalizing because you're like, what the fuck does this mean?
Because then it just comes off a little bit like an edgy tweet. Because there's potential and it builds up, and then to your point, it doesn't quite reach the level of the complexity that it's trying to get at because of the quality of film that he's trying to make.
Yeah.
Whether it's Men or Annihilation or fucking Ex Machina, there's a lot of him trying to be like, I have this incredible thought, but then by the end of the film, you're like,
Well, and that's the thing is, I think a lot of people take it with a grain of salt because it makes them feel kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the worst thing you can do to an audience. On the other hand, I applaud it completely that he wants to make these thoughtful, intellectually based films. Not to mention Devs, right? Like you loved Devs, and I liked it quite a lot. But you recall it when I finished it, I was like, what happened?
That was my first reaction as well. The ending, I was like, I hated it. But that's my reaction with every Alex Garland film, is like the first half or the first 3/4 has me in a stranglehold. I cannot look away. And then at the end, I'm like,
He never really answers
what the fuck
question.
you doing, my guy? Every time. Even if he leaves it open to interpretation, Alex Garland, it just goes, you figure it out, but also, I'm just going to wrap this up.
Well, I think of all of his movies. So can we just go through a little bit of what his work has been?
Yeah.
So he was a novelist. He wrote The Beach, and then he wrote the screenplay for The Beach, the Danny Boyle film.
Nice.
He becomes kind of just a screenwriter. He does 28 Days Later, Sunshine, which is excellent.
Fucking love
28
Sunshine.
Days Later is amazing too, don't get me wrong.
Sunshine, also a Danny Boyle joint, right?
Yeah, Sunshine. He works with Danny Boyle for quite a bit. Then he does Never Let Me Go, a Mark Romanek movie, which I do want to cover genuinely because it's an interesting movie and an interesting book that it's based on, which is to say the least. Then he does Dread, which you're a big fan of, and you made me watch, and I liked it a lot too.
Carl Urban's Mean Mug.
And then he starts directing with Ex Machina. And I also want to point out that he said in an interview that the first draft he wrote of Men was between Never Let Me Go. He wrote it back between Sunshine and Never Let Me Go. It was the first time he came up with this idea that he now has turned into a film. He does Ex Machina, which I think is actually his most straightforward kind of work so far.
You don't think Men is more straightforward than Ex Machina?
No. Ex Machina clearly, to me, like, it's so clear what happens at the end of Ex Machina.
Huh.
She goes to integrate into society and possibly destroy it. Yeah.
Great.
Which, a movie I love, starring our About Time boy and Alicia Vikander.
And Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac.
Come on, never forget Father.
I love him. And then he does Annihilation and Devs and Men. Annihilation was like one of my top 10 favorite movies of that decade.
Really?
Yeah, I really, really love Annihilation.
And this is despite having read the book, you watched it.
I read the book after.
Oh,
I
that's why.
I still love Annihilation.
Okay,
so my whole thing about Annihilation, I mean, it's an incredible movie. I saw it in theaters.
Yes.
I was so happy to see it in theaters because it has this weird distribution, and it's really hard to find now.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it was, like, it came out in theaters. I saw it. The other person in the theater saw it. Alex Garland might have seen it too.
Sitting together.
And then it was distributed for like 5 years by Netflix in Canada only. So I watched it over and over again because you could always find it on Netflix, and now it's gone. Replaced with some piece of shit that Netflix thinks is, I don't know, has had their algorithm poop out to be like, oh yeah, people will like this.
Oh, another
Wisconsin.
Hallmark Christmas movie.
Yeah. Fuck you, Netflix. And then, but like Annihilation, and then I read the trilogy, the Southern Reach trilogy that it's based on. And what I love about it is that, so he writes Annihilation before that book is published, and he just like read it. He said he read it like one time, I believe, and then wrote his interpretation of it, which becomes this movie, which, to be fair, is much more cinematic than the book would have been.
Sure.
However, the book Annihilation is so fucking good.
Terrifying.
That someone could... Yeah, it's one of the few books that genuinely scared me.
Literally, yes.
Like, I was like reading it in the evening and I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I should not. Yeah.
Our girl Moopy gave me a recommendation to watch, to read Annihilation, but while listening to the movie soundtrack.
Yes.
Oh, game changer. So...
he works with the same guys a lot, Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow, I think their names are. And I want to talk a little about the score for this movie because They're very talented people. But so like Annihilation, you could straight up adapt the book of Annihilation and have a completely different and totally enjoyable experience. Which it's such an interesting thing that he did by changing the book so much, yet capturing the essence and making a very, very good movie out of it. So that's my thing about Annihilation. I think it's an awesome film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Men. That's what we're talking about today.
Damn. Men was so scary. I'm so glad that British people are not real, because British people, am I right? Spooky.
British people be spooky.
Be spooky.
So you have like, I have written down probably the dumbest take ever, because I was literally like, this film still tantalizes me, and I'm just kind of like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
But you said you had like thoughts about this, so
I got thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a man, I cede the floor to you.
Thanks, man.
A lady.
Questionable, but okay. Okay. Before we even get into the plot,
did you notice they're all the same man?
Who, by the way, incredible acting by
Rory Kinnear.
What a legend.
He's great.
My God. Yeah. I want 10 more of him. And it was great.
I mean, if you go to Kotzen, you'll find them.
You'll find them.
Yeah.
But don't, because he's scary. The best part of this movie is that it's completely weird. When it's
surreal.
It's surreal. It starts off, it takes your base fears, it twists them into a way that you kind of don't see it coming. You think it's going to be a certain type of scary movie until it's not.
Yeah.
So
the first base fear is, oh my God, I'm in England.
The second base fear is there's no Wi-Fi. Fuck.
Yeah.
So it's really unsettling. It's brilliantly done. The soundtrack is fucking incredible. Acting, chef kiss. And Garland, like, his track record alone should make you want to watch this, right? Like you said, Ex Machina, Annihilation, and then he even wrote Devs and Sunshine, and all great. The first half, brilliant, dreadful. And then I don't like when the kind of fear, you've settled into the fear, you want something somewhat profound to come out of it. Because the fear, of course, is the titular men, right? She's alone, and then in this town, every man looks the same. Even a little boy looks just like the Kinnear. Like it's all the same guy.
Yeah.
But it's not quite Get Out. It's like wrapped around this social message of like, oh, there's terror and there's something menacing laying in the middle of it, but it doesn't really get there. It like takes you to the high of the roller coaster and then like gently brings you down instead of going Boosh.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, okay, I see the ratings, 69%.
Yeah.
Okay, 40% audience score, harsh. I think it definitely should be like in the 70s, but I see it. And I see it just for that, for the rise, and not enough of a sensational fall. Forget the social message. Forget the, oh my God, hashtag not all men. I don't give a shit. I just mean in terms of the plot.
Yeah. I think that horror films are really, really hard to end.
Incredible.
And I think this is a really good example of it, because it's like, I mean, there's so many horror movies have been shown to be like, it's really hard to end this, to land this plane in a way that's like very satisfying. Yeah. I honestly don't believe many horror films do it very well. And I think this is an example, but at least he did something interesting at the end.
100%.
Because to be fair, who could have expected what happens at the end of this film?
Oh,
you know?
So good. And we're not going to spoil it just yet because we're going to go through the plot, but it starts off talking about, textbook stereotypical men, just wife-beating predatorial misogynists, the usual lot that we see on the internet and sometimes in real life.
There's also, so you want to get into the plot now?
Let's do it.
Because there's stuff I want to talk to you about after as well.
Okay, let's break it down.
It'd be best to kind of explain what actually happens in
as we
movie.
go.
So Jessie Buckley plays Harper, and she is going on like a solo vacation because her husband has just died from falling, quote unquote, off of the roof of their apartment building after an argument. Her husband is played by Papa Essiedu.
Oh, what a king.
He's such a good actor. And if anyone hasn't watched I May Destroy You, he is unreal.
Sensational.
In that fucking show. And that show is amazing. That show is one of the best shows I've seen in a long time.
It's a fantastic show.
And he's fantastic. And he's really good in this. And he, it's kind of slowly revealed what happened, but we'll get into it now. Essentially, like, they were getting a divorce. She was telling him she wants a divorce. He threatens to kill himself. She says, like, that's really unfair because it is emotionally manipulative, right? He hits her, and then she kicks him out of the apartment. He forces his way into the apartment upstairs and slips, falls, or jumps off the roof. It's actually never totally clear, but it seems like he commits suicide. But that question still is in the air. It, like, lingers in the air. And she finds his body at the bottom, horribly disfigured, which Alex Garland has a real penchant for certain types of violence that makes it very uncomfortable. But he's injured in very specific ways. He's got a pipe, like a thing stabbed through his wrist, and his ankle is broken.
Yeah.
And this is important to know because it does come back later, and it's something that I have wondered about since I saw this movie.
Yeah.
But so in the aftermath of all this, Jessie Buckley goes on a vacation to this village called Kotzen. She rents this big manor house, and it's this tiny idyllic countryside village with shitty Wi-Fi and an eccentric landlord named Jeffrey, played by Rory Kinnear. Besides Papa Essiedu, every other man is played by Rory Kinnear. That's all you gotta know. Yeah, so
incredible.
Whenever we bring up someone else, it's played by Rory Kinnear.
Yeah,
like she meets Jeffrey, the eccentric landlord, who's very British, and gives her a tour of this beautiful house and stuff. And then she's just there. She calls her friend, who's like supportive of her and kind of gives some background. And also sees that her phone signal, classic horror trope, her phone signal is not good. And when it cuts, it's one of my favorite little aspects of the movie. Did you notice this stuff when it cuts out?
What happens when it cuts out?
The screen on the phone cuts and like jumbles, and you see the face of a man screaming.
Oh,
you didn't notice that?
No.
It happens a couple times. It's
maybe
very
at the
cool.
cinemas, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
it
like her entire phone just like splits out, and then you see these like cuts of this jumbled man, but you definitely see like a face like with their mouth open. Yeah, it's very cool. Creepy as fuck.
Black Mirror.
And
I'm
then
about that life.
She goes for a walk in the beautiful British countryside.
Terrifying.
Something I like about this is that like England, unlike somewhere like Canada, is not well known for like a certain type of natural beauty.
Yeah.
But to me, I find it really interesting because I didn't grow up with stuff like that. But when she goes on this walk, it's all very like normal, kind of like British countryside stuff. And the cinematography is made in such a way that it like really pops, and it's like there's these greens that like jump off the screen at you, and they're just like yeah, and it's really beautiful. And there's this like amazing, I gotta get to the score because the use of sound in this sequence is so amazing. Like there's this like choral kind of echoey thing, because this actual this sequence where she goes for the walk and ends up at the train tunnel, this is really like the marquee scene.
100%.
It's used extensively in the trailer.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
It never makes me want to ever go into a tunnel.
Yeah.
Not that I ever do anyway, but this just solidifies.
Yeah. So she goes into this dark tunnel and she starts like singing into it, and it's like echoing back at her and stuff. And then a shadow just like kind of rises at the end and screams and like chases her out of the it's like that like scream, that like echo, and then it echoes back at her.
Jesus.
It's just so terrifying and just so amazing. And so she gets chased basically, and then she's like kind of caught in this storm, and there's like this music, the choral score, it's really incredible. And then she ends up in this field, and she turns around to take a picture. And as she takes a picture, she notices a naked man standing by this tree, watching her. And then she, that's very weird. So she runs back to the house.
Right.
She calls her friend to kind of talk about what was going on. And she sees the man in the yard.
In her yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the apple tree from which she ate earlier.
Oh,
This
classic.
is a very allegory kind of thing there.
Everything's a forbidden fruit. Am I right, ladies?
Yeah, that like when Jeffrey is like, no, shouldn't do that. Forbidden fruit.
Oh God.
Just kidding. That's a horrifying
Hated
sequence. Yeah.
Hated it so much, but yes.
So the man is like arrested, and they're just like, oh, he's like a mentally ill wanderer. And it's like, really? Really? Is he?
He's buck naked.
He's covered in leaves and cuts.
Yeah.
So,
Oof,
yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever mental illness he has, I want.
Come get your boy.
Yeah. Britain, am I right? And so he's arrested, so that's a very scary incident. And then she goes to the church. She goes into town because going out in nature wasn't really that fun. So
No.
she goes into town. She goes to the church, and there's this symbolism of like the green man and the Sheila something or other.
Yeah. Sheila Lane.
Yeah,
No.
Lanog or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know enough about that stuff to really
Me
get
neither.
into it. Yeah. I'm all about the cinema.
Sheila can wait.
Cinematastic.
So at this point she's seen one man. Two men.
Yeah, and
Her
none
landlord?
of this is pointed out by her. Like, she's never like, oh, it's weird they all look the same.
Yeah,
they just do.
nothing yet. Yeah.
That's the surreality of it. And at the church, there's kind of like a more reveal about what happened with her and her husband. And then she goes outside, and there's a young boy who is a real dick. Normal English kid.
Classic.
And then she talks to the vicar, and the vicar like kind of wants to help her. And then like the creepy way he kind of like turns it on her and is kind of like, I mean, did you forgive him for hitting you?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Did you give him a chance to apologize
Did
after
you give him
he
a chance
hit you?
to apologize? It's like, no, dude.
Even though the little boy looks exactly like a grown man, somehow the vicar is the creepiest to me.
I mean, his hair
It's
is
the hair.
horrible.
It's the greasy Snape-like hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's all gray.
He looks like a Malfoy.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
like not hot. What other way is there to be?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Then she goes into the pub. She finds, again, it's probably one of the least friendly English town pubs you've ever been to. And the cop comes in and says, like, oh, we let the guy go.
Yeah.
And she calls them a bunch of wankers and goes back home, where we see the man follows her from the churchyard in the shadows, which is also very creepy.
Excellent scene.
And then, like, this is kind of, we're getting into the end of the film at this point. We've stopped being, like, dreadful and creepy and started getting into, like, the Halloween horror aspect where people start to accost her at the house, all of them the same person, just changing between people she's seen before who all look like Rory Kinnear, the cop, the green man, the vicar,
the bartender,
the
little boy.
There's also this, like, interesting part where Jeffrey shows up to be like, oh, what's... like, I'll help you and stuff. And I found he says this line where he, like, goes out. He's like, I'll go out and I'll find them. And then she's like, you don't have to. And then he's like, you have the exact traits of a failed military man. He's like, my father said that to me
when I was 7 years old.
Yeah. And I was like, this is really interesting. It's kind of like what we talked about in Alpha Dog with the toxic masculinity kind of in these subtle ways that, and I, not to spoil it, but I think there's something there with how the men create the other men, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's done very symbolically.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of what
in this movie it's done very literally as well, which we'll come to. But the point that you brought about of the apple tree being like a biblical thing about the forbidden fruit, and then women eat it and then shit out a baby. I don't know, I can't read, but there's
were you quoting the Bible there?
Shit
out a baby.
Eve. I thought it was there's a shot of the tree and the apples are just laying directly under it, not rolled far away, which is quite literally the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, which could be that fathers raise their sons to be a certain way that their fathers raised them. And so maybe that's the cyclical nature of toxicity and what have you.
And they all fall at once too at that one scene, right?
Yeah.
Which is very cool. And then, like, she has this encounter with the vicar. Oh, sorry. So the Green Man, this is important. The Green Man returns essentially and reaches inside the mailbox, the mail slot, when she stabs him in the wrist, and he pulls back on the knife, and it splits his arm in half lengthways from like the elbow to the end. And now his arm is in half, stabbed in the very same way that her husband was when he died, when he fell.
Excellent. And
now every man has that wound that she encounters.
Yeah.
And the vicar comes in and gives a very, very just super cool, comfortable, neato, just, hey, J-Bucks, you're doing a great job. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Men be like,
sounds a bit like Richard Harris.
Live long and prosper. We come in peace.
Richard Harris, I want what's between your legs.
Gross. Oh, please, not Dumbledore.
I'm Dumbledore.
No.
And I would like it.
Do not
I just have to tell everyone that Richard Harris is my proudest achievement as an SNL
impersonator.
Yeah.
Harry.
I'm Richard Harris. Harry. I was in Gladiator once.
Oh, shit. Right. Oh,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God. Oh, what a pimp.
I was Octavius, and now I'm Dumbledore.
Men? Is it you?
Yeah, and she stabs the vicar. And then basically she like runs to get away. She drives her car, and then she runs over Jeffrey, who pulls her out of the car, throws her on the ground, and takes the car away. So she returns back to the house, and that's when the shit really starts to go down.
This is when Alex Garland is like, yo, you ain't ready for this shit.
Yeah. So basically, like, it's a little hard to describe what happens here, but she sees each man, starting with the Green Man in succession, give birth to another man out of their body.
Bussy, just straight up.
Well, at first from like between his legs, and then from out of the shoulder blades and out of the mouth.
Back. Yeah.
And basically, like, it's a succession of all of these men following her into the house, giving birth to another man.
In the most gory, visceral way possible. And there's about 400% more birth in this movie per square inch. There's got to be some kind of world record.
This is a real House of the Dragon episode.
Hella nothing but birds. Just, my God.
And then it ends with out the mouth comes her husband.
Yeah.
And he sits down on the couch and says, "Look at me," basically. Yeah. And then
she says, "What do you want from me?"
What do you want from me?
And he says, "Love.
Just your love.
Just your love."
Yeah.
Which really is the tweet equivalent of, "Hey, queen, there's only one thing worse than a man. Another man." but she can trust the good ones. # not all men. Now, where's my hug? Like, he's that guy.
Yeah.
He's the waiting for a hug guy, which makes Alex Garland seem a little bit like a waiting for a hug guy.
That's some of the criticism that was leveled at Alex Garland.
Right.
So basically, just to end off the plot, though, that's what happens. And then her friend who said she was coming arrives. And there's also, maybe we can chat about it. Her friend is pregnant, which I think is on purpose, and arrives and finds her sitting in the garden. Finn. Movie.
But then
over.
there is like blood and destruction around the property.
And the car is wrecked. Like, she sees everything. But, like, what does she see, right?
So is ladies be crazy, or is it men are just there and then disappear after the trauma is done?
Easy. Ladies are crazy. That's
cool. Cool. And Oscar.
Okay, so that's some criticism I saw. Wait, I gotta find this like quote that I really loved. Yeah, okay. So some of the criticism I saw was that, like, because Alex Garland is a man, he's writing this story.
Sure.
I have a couple things to say about this. He's writing this story, and it ends up, because a lot of it doesn't land for people.
Yeah.
And so it comes across as him kind of being like, and this is I read this in Vulture from this writer, Angelica Jade Bastian, her quote, and I'm gonna use this. Like, she's like, it kind of doesn't go far enough, and then it ends up just being like, damn, misogyny's crazy, right? Which is
exactly.
I kind of agree.
I
kind of agree.
Yeah, dude.
And on the other hand, and I'm gonna paraphrase this one, he did an interview with IndieWire about the film, where so the guy asks him, he's like, this is a movie called Men. It hovers around the edges of a gaslighting thriller centered on a woman with themes that are very contemporary. Like, did you ever have a question or self-doubt about being a man and telling this story? And Alex Garland says, he's very talkative. He says a shitload. But what he says is like, it's like really dicey territory to get into being like, you can't write this or you can write this, right? It's kind of up to the audience to decide whether they want to take this message on from the person who created it, right? And I agree with him there, is that like, just because he's a man doesn't mean he can't kind of tell a story like this. But as has been shown with this movie, it's very clear that it doesn't work for a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of like gambit that he's making, and he knows that.
Sure.
And I agree with him, because I'm just kind of like, well, if a woman had written something like this, first of all, it would have been totally different. Alex Garland is a very unique filmmaker, as we've talked about. But I'm also kind of like, I don't think this whatever ideas he's trying to get at, I don't think they're invalid because of he's a man.
No.
You know?
And it's not so much a criticism of a misogyny and how it's represented in the film itself, but for me, it's that it had such great promise leading up to like 2/3 of the film, and then I was like, oh great, really weird shit happens with, you know, one more birth and then it kind of just doesn't wrap up. I thought it would have an explosive ending, which I would have been happy if it ended at the birthing scene. It just keeps on coming. There's just more men and more men. They keep falling out of it. Cut it, end it there, and then just leave the audience.
I think the thing that's so dissatisfying about the film, and I kind of think it's like not on purpose, is that in the end, you just come back to the status quo of how men and women can kind of relate in these relationships.
Yeah.
With her husband is birthed out of this man's mouth.
Yeah.
And comes and after all of this fucking trial and tribulation, he sits on the couch and they basically start having the same conversation they had when they divorced.
Exactly.
That's what's so like both dissatisfying but interesting about it.
Yeah, because who's to say her next relationship will be any different with anyone else?
But also like I also would kind of be frustrated by a movie that just lets her hit a home run at the end and is like, solved it. Men done.
Men done. Men over.
Like, because it would be even worse if Alex Garland was like, this movie's called Men and I have all the answers.
Oh boy.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what's so fucking like.
Which is not what he's doing.
We were talking the other day because we watched She Said.
Yeah.
A totally good movie.
Yes.
But a movie that has a message that it's like, yeah, of course.
Of course.
We all fucking agree.
Yeah.
Like, nobody is out there being like, I don't know, Harvey Weinstein was all right. Like, it's too easy. It's too just, like, straight down the line.
Yeah.
And a movie like this is kind of like, yeah, well, this can't solve everything.
Also,
it's solve the issues.
It's a timeline thing, right? It's like this movie is too late to the scene. At this point, everyone is on the same page. There's no compelling argument
she
for
said.
She Said.
Yeah, I agree.
For it to be like, guys, Harvey Weinstein, guys.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, man, we're all on the same page. I don't know if I want to sit through a 3-hour film.
Yeah.
To feel like, aha,
well,
I learned something else.
It wasn't 3 hours. We were just high.
Yeah.
We were just stoned. So
yeah.
It
oh,
felt
right.
like
That'll do it.
There was times in that movie where I was like, man, they're still in this scene, hey? But like, it's weird. I find the dissatisfaction of this film kind of satisfying.
Okay. I know what this movie talks about. We know why it talks about it. But like how this movie talks about those things, that is where the dissatisfaction is. It's a little bit like, oh, great, there's all this surreal imagery, but then the topic is quite plain. Okay, men are evil. Okay.
Well,
there is like
the system of men.
Yes.
It has serious issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like partly subtle with the symbolism, but also partly very, very obvious, right? And so it's like a mixed bag of being kind of emotional and raw, but also really silly and goofy sometimes. Just outright weird. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Do you know that men have issues? Men got issues, guys. It's a lot of that. So I like Men. I like the tone. I like the acting. I like the music, all of that. But I don't know. It's towards the end, it feels like it's a bit thematically bankrupt.
Say more about that.
Towards the end, when the resolution, you're hoping to like stay with the theme of the horror, that's gone for me. I'm feeling a bit like there's nothing to the ending. There is no character growth or any characteristics of the only female character outside of her being a trauma victim or a survivor of whatever abuse that she's endured in her marriage. So the only thing we know about this female is that she hurting, and then the only thing we find out towards the end is like probably still hurting.
Yes.
Okay. I get like it's real, I guess, because much like in real life, you don't get to come out of a cocoon every time you go through something terrible.
Yeah.
But maybe that is the message, is that it's meant to be a blah ending because so is life.
Yeah, I think it's not meant to. Like I said, I think it would be worse if there was any solution kind of given about like the system that is kind of oppressing her.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of those reviews, I saw one that was like Alex Garland's movies sure have a lot of women suffering. In Annihilation, 5 women suffering. In Ex Machina, female robots be suffering. Like in this one, so women be shopping for trauma.
But more to the point, I think in Ex Machina is the fact that Oscar Isaac has created 2 female robots to completely dominate. Not so much that the robots are suffering, but there is something there that Oscar Isaac has built these 2 beautiful women robots to completely subjugate.
For him to dominate them.
Yes,
correct. Yeah, 100%.
And then he gets his comeuppance at the end when
they kill him.
Machika, the Japanese one stabs him, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's just that
this one is just the most blatant about that kind of theme, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I thought this seemed more linear to me than Ex Machina.
Is that like, what was the take you had? You said you had these thoughts that you wanted to talk to me
just
about.
That it takes this incredible, it starts with this like super surreal, incredible horror film, and then takes a sharp left into what the fuck will, and then is just kind of underwhelming in the absolute end of like the last 7 minutes.
But like, are you dissatisfied with the ending? Is that why?
Like,
what do you?
This is an 8.5 for me, and it could have been a 10 or 11.
What is missing though? Like what do you articulate that's missing?
I wish it ended on a horror note, which is, I know it's a personal preference.
I think it is horror though. It's horror that the system continues. You know.
I just in terms of the literal aspect of the movie itself, like her pregnant friend comes to her and puts her arm around her, and now it's just 2 women at the end, you know, just sitting there in the ruin, but she has a way home. Great. I don't want that happy ending. I wish for this to be a true horror film.
Okay.
Just as is with fucking any A24 film. It's like women be shopping for trauma. It's all of that. But then I just didn't want it to be so resolved, I guess. She kills all the men. She's, you know, succeeds. And then is it a happy ending? I don't know.
No, I don't think it's a happy ending. I don't think it resolves at all. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like when in the weird surrealness of it, when her husband comes out of the guy's mouth, and he's just like, he hasn't learned anything.
No.
Like, even though he's part of the surreal figment of her imagination, he's still like, I just want your love. And it's like,
oh God. Yeah.
I don't know. It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this idea that this man can like, and it's kind of echoed in what the vicar says to her, but it's like this man can like hit her, right? Punch her, and then be like, I just want you to love me.
Yeah.
And then also be like, if you divorce me, I'll kill myself.
Yeah.
Which is like it's
classic manipulation.
Super emotionally manipulative, because the catch-22 of it all is like, if you're with someone who says that, the only thing you can do is leave them.
Right.
You know? Like, because that threat is so brutal. But it's also like they're doing all this, and they're just like, I'll harm you, I'll harm myself, because all I want is for you to love me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's so insane.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but
I guess my thing is that so she killed that guy in the end, I assume. Or like she killed all these iterations of men. You know, I don't know. And it doesn't have to be nicely wrapped up with a bow on top.
it's a confounding ending, definitely. Yeah.
Which is strange compared to all his other films where he does kind of close the loop a little bit. And in this one, it's like, yo, just let the murders go on. Like let it be like I wanted the sensation that I got in the first hour of the film of just like edge of my seat dread, and then just like, you know, slumping back towards the end where I was like, okay. Great, like still stays with you. It makes me want to talk about it more and more. It makes me want to watch it again and again.
Yeah.
Also just incredibly weird. Like I love all the men giving birth to other men stuff. Great. Do more of that. Never seen that in any other film personally.
No.
And the idea that
Wait,
like
that doesn't happen in Sex and the City too, right?
Babe, I can't believe
Doesn't Charlotte give birth through her shoulder blades at some point?
that's Miranda.
Oh, sorry.
God, it's because she's a lawyer, and that's only possible when you're a lawyer. Anyway, the thing with like every man in the village having the same face, who thought of that? Great.
Yeah.
Like such a good idea. I just wanted to. I'm just greedy for more of that.
I think like the surreal nature of the film is like it's like not helped by the fact that it kind of has this like social message.
Yeah.
Or seemingly does. So
very obviously does.
Yeah, like I think people kind of are like it should have been like a weirder film about something totally different rather than. But then again, something like Get Out has like a Get Out has a social message and it works.
Yes, and it works.
But
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
it's satisfying because he slumps further into dread, and it's kind of made obvious a little bit towards the end, which is fine. But in this one, it's just kind of left up in the air a little bit for you to sit with.
But in Get Out, he kind of like ultimately comes out of it all alive, right? And he's been saved by TS motherfucking A.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this movie, I truly think that it's like in the end, she's gone through all this stuff and then she's got to have the same dumb conversation with her fucking husband who she's just like, oh my God, leave me the fuck alone, dude. I'm trying to fucking be rid of you even though you've died ostensibly, but now you're here. Like now you're fucking right here.
Come on.
Sitting in this place where I've tried to escape from you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so, like, it's very defeating. And Jessie Buckley is such a fucking good actress. You can kind of see it when she's like, I think there's this point. So at the very end, they're sitting on this couch together, and Jessie Buckley's holding an axe. And I think you see it when she kind of like, she's like, oh, fuck, this fucking guy. Like, I don't want to be here. And I think she touches the blade of the axe, and she looks at it like it's kind of like, I mean, would it even matter if I fucking chopped him to pieces right now? Like, does it matter? You know? Mm-hmm. Because like you said, maybe like her husband is passed away in real life, has died, but it's like if she gets into another relationship with the man or something like that, will it just be the same thing, the same loop?
Like her shit in her mind is altered in a way
that
I don't know if it's so easy to get out of it.
I don't know why they didn't say this in the movie. She should go to therapy.
And the ending is just her and the girls from Sex and the City being like, oh my God, #men, am I right?
The post-credit scene is the therapist being like, well, have you ever considered that you're crazy? I want to say one more thing too. I read this in Wired by Eric Ravenscroft. He had a really interesting question that I think about a lot, but I actually never thought about with this movie. He's like, I really like this movie, and I think about it a lot in the subsequent times I've seen it. But he's like, but who is this for? Because he was like saying that he's like, the people who need to see a movie like this are not going to see it.
Well, sure.
And the people who do see it, who need to see it, aren't going to take away the message that needs to be taken away, you know? So it's kind of like preaching to the choir a little bit of this isn't going to change anyone who takes this movie in good faith. It's not going to like change their mind about
it's
about
definitely
like toxic masculinity.
It's
or
not
like
for
that.
someone who's like a fucking deranged guy, right? It's not. He's not going to be watching movies.
They're also not going to see. They're not going to go see it, right?
But it can be for women who have gone through that kind of trauma, and if they do watch it, maybe they won't watch it to completion because obviously they might be put off by the contents in the first 20 minutes of the film. So I don't know.
But I sometimes like...
But it's good to just create even any kind of discourse with a film.
Yes, I agree. But it's also something I think about like quite a lot. Like, and She Said is the most recent but good example of that, where I'm just kind of like, well, like, who are you telling? Like, who exactly are you trying to... And I think lots of movies like that come out with some sort of message, like a little bit of a social message. Sometimes you're just kind of like, what could you possibly hope to gain societally from this? Because I don't know, like I just don't. It's kind of like when Barbie, which I haven't seen, you have, like it comes out, it's like this big deal, but like most people who should kind of take on a message like they supposedly have in Barbie are gonna be like, no, I'm not watching that shit.
Well,
and it's like yeah, because it's like you're not actually the target demographic, but you're who it's about, so like you should see it.
It's also, I mean, it kind of encourages parents to take their children, boys, girls, non-binary, who like, it's good to encourage a younger audience to watch something like that, which is not the case for men. You can't take your children and be like, guys, don't be mean to your future partners.
My
right?
future kids are. This is the first movie I'm sitting them down to see. I'm going to be like, look, we can watch Star Wars, but first we got to watch this really important movie called Men.
One more birth.
Yeah.
One more
That's
birth.
what I want them to be chanting at the end.
Yeah, it's a good message. The point really is to walk away with a sense of don't take shit.
Yeah.
Whether it's Barbie, whether it's Men, whether it's She Said. And if you have that message more and more in media, if more and more people talk about it, maybe it makes an iota of a difference.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes good enough.
I certainly think like when I watch this movie again, like it does make me like examine stuff in my life. You know? Like it does make me think about like the like subtle and unsubtle ways that men can have certain effects on women. Like there's the part where the vicar like puts his hand on her knee. Yeah. You know? Oh. And he's like, this is like when he's like trying to be super supportive, and then it totally flips and you're just like, this is so gross. But it starts to become so obvious that it's just kind of like, well, I get that. But even like the subtle ways where he's like this person of authority who's supposedly a spiritual guide, and he's like, oh, please like sit with me. And then he just starts to become such a fucking piece of shit. Yeah. Which is like a lot of women's experience of men in positions of power, right?
Oh God. Like the more one of the subtle ones is the Mr. Nice Guy tropes, where it's Jeffrey, who is the landlord or the guy who owns the house, is just like, oh, Mrs. Whatever her name is, Mrs. Buckley. And he keeps calling her Mrs. Buckley, or whatever her name is, even though she's divorced, even though the guy's dead.
Also the part where she eats the apple and she tells him, and then he's like, "Oh no, don't do that," and he makes this like he becomes very serious, and then it's like, haha, funny joke, right? And it's like, dude, like it's not that funny because she's alone in this house with you, and
you're like, going like. You're not even thinking twice about making her comfortable. You're just so uncomfortable with your own self that you're coming out weird.
But he's such a doofus that he doesn't even realize that could make a woman uncomfortable, right? And then, like, the very obvious one is, like, when the cop is like, yeah, we let him go. We just couldn't hold on to him. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? He
just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, and he's just like, well, if you see him again, call us. And it's like, well, that's not... fucking and it's actually kind of like cathartic when she's like, you fucking wankers.
And it's like it's good and satisfying when she's like stabbing the arm and splits it open, or like when she kills the other men, and all of that is great. It's very like one woman speaks for all other women's is injustice, like Promising Young Women. You know, they don't give the character much depth beyond just being like, oh, they were a victim of abuse, but look how strong they are. I want more from a character when it's the only character in the film.
Yeah. Can I finish off with one last thing? Yeah. Our guy Adam Naiman on The Ringer, great writer who I think I've talked about before. Beau is Afraid we talked about. He brought up something interesting, and I have this very long quote. I just want to read it. Yes. I thought it was like, I didn't actually think about it until I read this, and I was like, that's a really interesting comparison. Okay, so the idea of a grieving character seeking relief in unfamiliar surroundings feels more than a little inspired by Roeg's great occult shocker, Don't Look Now, and Garland also borrows liberally from Lars von Trier's 2009 art house endurance test, Antichrist.
Nice.
Itself a fount of allusions to Roeg's classic. In Antichrist, the vacationers are a husband and wife trying to cope with the death of their child. And Von Trier, one of the great sadists in contemporary world cinema, weaponizes their bucolic surroundings so that nature itself seems to be preying upon their vulnerabilities and turning them against one another in a mythic battle of the sexes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this movie has lots of similarities with Antichrist in
Definitely.
the fact that it's a more of a vibe than a film,
Yes.
kind of.
Yes.
It's got less plot and more vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because while she is not with an actual man, it's like all of the surroundings and trappings of men continuously push her in. First she's in the forest, then she's in the town, then she's stuck in her house because of all of these surroundings.
Oh.
And I just thought that was a really poignant idea. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And eventually, like, all it can do is, like, the area slowly tightens around her until she's back, stuck in a living room, arguing with her fucking jerk of a husband, kind of.
Damn.
And I like you said earlier, I don't think it hits thematically as well, but it's something, and there's something to it.
That's there.
Yeah.
You're totally right. The outside to inside to confinement to the absolute last scene when she's sitting outdoors in a garden. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm smart.
Mr. Analysis. Okay.
For a man, pretty smart.
Doing okay.
Pretty sharp, Got anything more to say about
Love
men?
it. I
kind of wish I was smarter so I could talk better about this movie. But it is truly confounding. Like, I do, now that we're sitting here and discussing it, I am a little bit like, I still don't feel like we answered anything.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be this greatly profound intellectual discourse about a movie that is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple, even though it tries to approach it in this, like, surreal way where it's, like, all masked in layers and all of that. At the face of it, it's, your trauma coming from abuse is not gonna let up until you do something about it.
It's a weird juxtaposition of, like, Alex Garland's weirdest, most surreal film with his most straightforward and message that is, like, the least kind of, it just seems so straightforward. Whereas Ex Machina and Annihilation, there's, like, all these other questions that arise from what happens in those movies, whereas with this it feels very confined, and I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like if you replace men with, like, surviving a bomb dropping on your city and you're a refugee, you could still go about the same way. If you replace it with Jesse Buckley's character with a soldier who's just come out of, like, PTSD, that it could still be told in the same way that Men is told, where the horrifying villain, which is man, is replaced by a bomb or, I don't know, Vietnam or something.
Yeah.
So we don't need to, like, be very high-minded about talking about trauma.
Oh, good, because I'm sick of it, honestly.
Yeah.
Sick of my own stupid voice.
No, it's great. I'm just saying that, like, the thing you mentioned about the circumstances pushing Jesse's character from out to in into the smallest confinement possible.
Yeah.
Great point. Holy shit.
Why don't I write a fucking blog
Why don't you fucking write a blog about it?
All right. Well, I guess now is a good time as we finish up to say, like, this movie's super violent and maybe don't, like, it's not like
it's not for everyone.
It's not for everybody, but it's quite good and yeah.
If you're a fan of or can handle gore, then 100,000% watch it. Watch it. But if you can't stand the sight of blood, don't watch it.
No, don't.
And
if you can't stand the sight of Rory Kinnear, which is a well-known medical condition, don't watch it. It's Kinnearism.
It's Kinnearology.
Kinnearology.
Every 5 scenes. Damn. I have a top 5.
You have a top 5. Oh shit! I thought we were gonna fucking not. I thought we were gonna fuck off after this and just be like,
not a chance. I have a top. Well, originally I had a top 5 alternate names for this movie, and it was gonna be fellas, blokes, and geezers. Fellas, but no. Now it's top 5 men, which is fairly straightforward. We can think of 5 men, can't we?
Hashtag not all podcasts.
So anyway, number 1, Louis C.K. Just kidding. Keanu Reeves, classic.
Good man.
Good man.
Well liked, yeah.
Well liked. A lot of hardships in his life, what I hear, and then still is just a stand-up dude. Takes the subway. Great.
Yeah, man.
Terry Crews. Oh, silence.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Sorry, I
Among
was
other
totally
things.
blanked. Yeah,
White chicks.
he's like 7 feet tall and gigantic. Yeah, he's great.
Longest yard, nothing but just like pecs for days.
White chicks.
his cinematic peak.
I expect number 3 will be the Wayans brothers.
No. Number 3, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
What a one of the nicer men who does things in real life.
Do you want to hear my hottest take about Steve Buscemi?
Oh shit. Go on.
Great actor, one of the great actors of generation. The reason Boardwalk Empire didn't really like hit is because Steve Buscemi shouldn't be a leading actor.
Yeah.
He's one of the best supporting actors to
Yeah.
ever live, but he's not a leading actor.
No,
you know?
That's why Horace and Pete didn't do it for me. I'm just kidding.
I loved Horace and Pete, actually.
know,
Speaking of our number 5,
our
Louis
number
CK.
1 man.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good
Steve
one.
Buscemi, good guy.
If you directly want to support Louis CK, go buy Horace and Pete on his website.
Do not. Okay, I guess it's perfect that we're talking about it in this pod. Danny DeVito. What a gem.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Like I love that he plays kind of an asshole in most things, and you know, when you just flip the script in real life, it's a nice thing to behold.
Yeah.
What a sweetie. And I think number 1 men is, I would say, our dads. Our dads are fucking sick.
Our dad's rip, yeah.
Our dads are real.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hashtag all dads.
Hashtag all dads, but not these two.
Although my dad did tell me yesterday when I saw him that I have the exact traits of a failed military man.
He's been saying that since you were 7.
It's a good top 5.
Shout out to
I'm
men.
glad you didn't put in one of Danny DeVito's co-stars who's like really concerned about not being seen as a good man.
Dennis?
No. Rob McElhenney.
Oh god.
Rob McElhenney seems like overly concerned with being conflated with his character on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's always kind of like, dude, we get it. You're a good guy. We get it. We got it.
Once you're like just nucks deep with Ryan Reynolds, you're in a different league already. So, you know what? You make that bed and you lay in it, Rob McElhenney.
Rob McElhenney.
Yeah. Get a better name, Robert. Okay.
Good top 5. I like it.
Thanks, man.
That's probably the most general top 5 we've ever done.
Yeah, top 5 men.
Yeah.
Our dads.
Next week we're gonna do She Said, and we'll do top 5 women. 2 of them are Megan Twohey and the other one, Jodie Cantor.
They're gonna be our moms. They're gonna make the list.
Yeah. Megan Twohey, Jodie Cantor, our moms, 1 and 2, and then the 4th one, Charlize Theron, I guess. Anyway, this has been the low ceiling.
I am the short man. I'm the little boy from Men, and you are.
I'm Roy Kinnear.
All of them?
Yeah.
You only get to pick one.
All right. Hashtag not all Johns. Bye.